Okay, now I'm going to run you through one scenario with adding a student that can create a lot of frustration and potentially insanity. I've spent the last couple hours dealing with this issue until I figured out what the problem was. So I thought I'd shoot a quick video and help you as an administrator avoid this problem in the future. And this all has to do with adding students. So this is the main login page. When you log into the SIS, you can see it's defaulting to Veritas Academy 2011-12 school year, first trimester, so all goodness. We are going to go to the students section. I came down here and I added two different students under add a student, Sally student and Studious student. So I added these two students, I typed in the required information, hit saved, all the information saved. But when I went back to the student info section, which is this default menu, which allows you to search, I started to look for those. Both of them had the last name student. So I thought, well, I'll search for student. And I submit, and it says no students were found. And yet I knew that I had saved them. So then I went back and said, okay, if you don't type anything and just click submit, it will pull up all students that have been created in the system. And guess what came up? No students were found. So I kept typing the information over and over and yet continued to be unable to find the student. Well, here is what I learned. If you want to search for students, I also click this include inactive students. So I click that button and submit, and guess what comes up? Sally student and Studious student, in the status area, they're both showing as inactive. So why are they showing inactive? Well, if you go into their record, and it took a while to figure this out, but if you go into their record and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see the attendance start date this school year. It defaults to August 22nd, 2011. That's because the school calendar says we're going to have an open house on the 22nd, which kind of kicks off the new school year. Well, there's a problem with that. I don't believe we're going to plan on using this system, at least for now, to track attendance. But if you have a date in the future, it's currently June 20th, as I record this video, and yet this start date is August 22nd. Because we're not tracking the student's attendance, they are showing as an inactive student. So what I would suggest is use this as a registration date. So if the date they registered was June 20th, today's date, and they are going to be attending from the beginning of the school year, okay, so they didn't transfer, and we click save, that has now updated their record to show an attendance school date of June 20th. Okay, so I've saved that now. I want to go back to the student list, and I'm going to update her brother Studious, and also put him from August 22nd to June 20th. Current enrollment date, and we already had beginning of the year for them. So now both student records have been updated. So if I go back to student info now, I'm going to be able to see both of these records because they're no longer considered inactive students. So if I go back here and I do a search, and in this case I'll just hit submit, you will now see that both of these students come up as active students. This is very important. You'll be very frustrated if you don't change that date to the current date or a date in the past. You won't be able to find the students when it comes time to register them for classes and update their data. So what makes a person an inactive student is if their attendance start date shows a future date.